Ross Tucker, our good buddy, CBS Sports Westwood One, Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he'll be on the call. Westwood One, Commanders, and the Eagles. When's the last time you remember the Washington football team being good and likable?
I think they were good and likable the RG3 rookie year.
Okay.
You know, they basically brought a lot of the college concepts that RG3 had done at Baylor to the NFL. It's a big reason, I think, Dan, why he was so successful that year, why they were so successful, is because defensive coordinators in the NFL hadn't seen a lot of the RPOs. They hadn't seen the zone read stuff. And so RG3 took the league by storm. The city was fired up. I hadn't seen, at the time at least, Redskin fans like that in a long, long time. And then he gets hurt in the playoff game, and it was just over. It was very fleeting. This, obviously, with Jaden Daniels, feels a lot more sustainable.
I like your Eagles a lot. I like them a lot more than I probably want to, but Jalen Hurts has played well. They don't rely on the pass. It feels like they're a Saquon Barkley-led offense here. And I don't want fool's gold here where I'm buying into it. Am I seeing what I'm supposed to see with the Eagles? Are you seeing the same thing, that they might be the second best team in the NFC?
Well, I think they are the second best team in the NFC. They're very, very good. And here's how I look at it, Dan. They're going against a 7-3 Commanders team tonight. And I went through it. There aren't many guys for the Commanders that would start for the Eagles. There just aren't. I mean, you look at it roster top to bottom. They've had the best defense in the NFL over the last 5 weeks. Basically, since the bye, since they put Cooper DeJean in at nickelback, the defense has been lights out. Now, they haven't faced a murderer's row of offenses, but they still went to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals by 20, and they held Joe Burrow, who's been as good as any quarterback in the league this year, to 17 points. And then think about this offensively. Without any question, they have a top 5 wide receiver duo, and maybe the best in the NFL. Without any question, they have a top 5 running back, maybe the best in the NFL. They have a top 5 offensive line, maybe the best in the NFL. I think they have a top 5 tight end in Goddard. Hurts, certainly since the bye, has played like a top 5 quarterback. So if you got the best defense for the last 5 weeks, your top 5 at worst at almost every offensive position, I mean, they are really, really good. Now, their schedule gets tougher. They got tonight. They'll play the Ravens. You know, they're going to be tested more coming up. But Dan, they've had almost 1,000 more yards than their last 5 opponents. They're outgaining people by almost 200 yards a game. I don't care who you're playing. You don't see that in the NFL.
Is the coach off the hot seat, Nick Sirianni, or was he on the hot seat?
He was definitely on the hot seat in the court of public opinion and among the fans. I do not think he was on the hot seat with the organization. I just can't see them doing that. I think that worst case scenario for him, they would have let the whole season play out. If it was a bad year, then I wouldn't have been surprised if they moved on. It's not a bad year. It doesn't look like it's going to be a bad year. I think I saw where he's second among active NFL head coaches in career winning percentage. He's 9th all time. And I know it's not like the biggest sample size, but it's 3.5 years now, right? I mean, that's a decent sample size to have the 9th best winning percentage of all time. What's funny, Dan, it's twofold, right? Everything I just told you about the roster, and they probably do have the best roster top to bottom in the NFL. That doesn't mean they'll win it. They had the best roster 2 years ago in 2022, and they still lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. But because of that roster, and then because of some of the ways that Sirianni has carried himself, and he's apologized for, by the way, especially talking to the Eagles fans, a lot of people they don't give him the credit when they win because the roster's so good. And if anything goes wrong at all, he gets all the blame. They talk all the time. What does he even do? He doesn't even call offensive plays anymore. Well, what does Dan Campbell do in Detroit? I mean, what do a lot of these coaches do? So for whatever reason, a lot of fans don't like him. They blame him for the collapse last year. They feel like they don't like the way he conducted himself earlier in the year. However, with every passing win, his approval rating is going up by like 5 points, Dan, every week with all these wins.
Are the Chiefs bored on offense?
I don't think so. When you watch them, though, it's just remarkable how they keep winning these games, because this is as bad as Mahomes has played in a while. They're not very good on the offensive side of the ball right now. I mean, Hopkins has helped a little bit. Their crutch is still just throwing the ball to Kelsey, who's not quite what he was earlier in his career, but he's still reliable. I will say this. It's unbelievable how many third downs they convert. They don't have many explosive plays. They're not putting a lot of points on the board, but they have an incredible ability. In my lifetime, I can't remember another situation where it's a critical third down. And I wish I did Chiefs games on TV, because all I would say every third down is, yeah, Jim, I'd like to predict a Mahomes throw to Travis Kelsey for a first down here, because it's like uncanny.
Oh, you would do your Tony Romo?
Yeah, you'd be right like 90% of the time if on third downs you just predicted a Mahomes to Kelsey first down.
It would probably sound like this if you had if you were going to play the role of Tony Romo with Jim Nantz.
I don't know, Jim. What are you going to do?
You know what's funny about this? Is why your show's so great, Dan. I thought you might go to Paulie to do his Ross Tucker interpretation and do that one, or I thought it might be a Fritzy. That Seton that came out of nowhere. Seton would have been third in my rankings of who was going to do the impression.
Well, we've done Tony Romo's impersonation to Jim Nantz on the show, because Seton will come in sometimes and that's how he does. I don't know, Jim. I'd throw it to Kelsey.
They can run it. They can pass it. What would you do here, Jim?
Or I could say, how would Ross Tucker do it?
I had a 6-meat platter last night. Casey, a hot bit of barbecue. Oh, gotta get it to Kelsey. Kelsey here in the flat.
And then if you were working with Kevin Harlan, it would probably sound something like this.
The single setback is hilarious. Back to pass Mahomes. He's got Travis Kelsey for another first down, and the Chiefs are on the move once again with under 2 minutes to go. This is the NFL on CBS.
All I just learned in the last minute is we got to get Marv to get some impressions. I mean, Marvin's got to do some impressions.
Marv, do you do any impressions?
No, I just do a bad Klay Thompson.
Oh, yeah, he does Klay Thompson, but I don't know if there's a real call for Klay Thompson.
There isn't, no. Not in this instance, no.
Okay, so give Ross your...
No, it's just LeBron got his feelings hurt. It's the man's game. That's it.
Would you rather have Jalen Hurts' future or Jaden Daniels' future?
Ooh, that's a good question. You're just talking about career, not contract or anything like that?
Career.
Okay. Well, so I think there's more upside for Jaden Daniels. It's funny because I really thought last year, Dan, that CJ Stroud had the best rookie season for a quarterback I could remember, especially when you consider the Texans didn't have great receivers, their O-line. Like what he did last year, I thought was better than what Andrew Luck did. And now Daniels is topping it. I mean, their offensive line's average at best. They have Terry McLaurin. I think the upside for Jaden Daniels as a player is higher than Jalen Hurts. I think Jaden Daniels is a better pure pocket passer. Mm-hmm. However, Hurts has the advantage of being with a much better, more established organization. You know, that's a big part of it. You're seeing that with Caleb Williams a little bit in Chicago. Like, let's put it this way, Dan. If Hurts was on the Commanders and Daniels was on the Eagles, it would be Daniels in a landslide. I think Daniels has higher upside to be a better player than Hurts, but it's still Washington, right? I know they have a new owner. I know things are looking promising, but it's half a season where we have the new owner doing positive things and good for the organization. I'm not ready to, if it's a future we're talking about, I'm not ready to go all in really on any player with that franchise. I played for them twice. You can see the helmets I'm pointing to. I know what that organization is like, and hopefully they're kind of removing the stink from the previous owner. But I got to go with the nest and the environment that Hurts has around him.
Ross Tucker, CBS Sports Westwood One analyst. He'll be on the call tonight, the Eagles and the Commanders. Check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Also, he has the Raiders and the Dolphins on Sunday on CBS. You know, you start to look at some of these games. You got the Ravens and the Steelers. It's always great, no matter what the records are. The Bengals at the Chargers is sneaky great.
Yeah.
Out of those two games, which matchup do you like better?
Well, so Bengals Chargers, that's a huge game for both those teams. That's I can't that's a beautiful Sunday night game. But Ravens Steelers for a long time has been my favorite rivalry in the NFL. And it's funny, Dan, I know you talk about gambling sometimes, but on the Even Money Betting podcast, I saw earlier this week where the Ravens were laying 3.5. I thought it was a joke. Dan, these teams have played 500 times. It's come down to a field goal or less every single time. It's 13-10 every game. Maybe now it's like 17-16, 20-17. I love this rivalry because it's always competitive, always hard-hitting, always fun.
Well, who are
but
you
also,
taking?
It always comes down to a field goal. I'm taking the Ravens to win the game, but I'm loving the Steelers plus the 3.5. Loving it.
Okay. The news that Aaron Rodgers is thinking about coming back next season means what?
Oh, I think it's fun to just speculate on which team will be desperate enough to give that a shot. Because I don't think it'll be the Jets.
Oh, okay.
I don't. I don't think they're going to. Now, here's the other thing, Dan. I would be sort of surprised, and I have no evidence on this, right? I'd be sort of surprised if Aaron Rodgers starts every game the rest of the year for the Jets, and I'd be very impressed if he does. I guess I just have a tough time picturing him playing out the string in these meaningless games in December. I wouldn't be surprised.
I can't see him on the sidelines. I can't.
What's that?
I can't see him on the sidelines. I just, there is no way his ego is going to be like, I'm going to hold a clipboard here.
No, what I think it is, Dan, is I think there would be some type of injury because he gets hurt a lot, right? He gets banged up a lot. At some point, there might come a time, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there comes a time where there's an injury that they decide, you know what, let's let this thing heal, not play the last 3 or 4 games. I might be wrong, and I hope I am, and I'll be thoroughly impressed if he sucks it up and plays all of these meaningless games in December. I'll have a lot of respect for Aaron if he does that.
Yeah, I didn't factor in if he would play someplace else. And you said if somebody's desperate, like if I'm the Jets, I don't want him to come back because it impedes me getting a really good coach. Because there's no coach that wants to come in and you got Aaron for one, like a gap year. Like you don't want to walk in.
You know who came to mind right away, Dan? And we'll see how the draft goes, and I'm sure they want to draft Shedeur Sanders, but
the Raiders?
Other teams probably do as well. The Raiders.
Yeah.
The Raiders. Because Antonio Pierce, obviously, this year's not going well. If he gets a second year, it's like win or else. Brady's a part owner now. I think Brady probably feels like, hey, I could do it in my early 40s. Aaron can do it in his early 40s. And Mark Davis, he just let Tom Brady get like a 50% discount on 5% of equity. Like Mark Davis likes, he likes stars. He likes big names. I mean, who gives someone, he basically like handed Brady millions of dollars to be a very minor owner on the team. I think I could see the Raiders doing it this offseason.
You played for the Cowboys. Did the sun ever bother you when you played for the Cowboys?
No, you know what though? When I played at the old what do they call it? Texas Stadium, where it was like the hole was just where the field was. You know, in other words, like the fans were protected, but it was right over the field was the opening. The crazy thing about that is growing up outside of Philly and watching the Cowboys my whole life. On TV, Texas Stadium always looked so awesome on TV. I'll never forget the first time I went there as a rookie. I was like, this place is kind of a dump. I had no idea. I had no idea. It's amazing how sometimes on TV things can look a lot better.
But do you think that's a home field advantage to have blinding sunlight?
Definitely not. And it certainly wasn't for CeeDee Lamb when he should have had a touchdown in the game. And if it is a home field advantage, then Mike McCarthy didn't take advantage of it by calculating. Here's what I know, okay? Because he's been asked about it a lot this week. Kellen Moore is the Eagles offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore played for the Cowboys for a while, was a coach there for a while, including being the coordinator. He said it's something you have to take into account. He said it's a factor. So I guess it is a home field advantage if the home team realizes that and takes advantage of it and the away team doesn't. Evidently, Kellen Moore, now on the away team, was more aware of it than Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys on the home team.
Crazy. Have fun tonight.
I will. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
And then you got the Raiders and the Dolphins Sunday on CBS. So, man, look at you. Busy. Proud of you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Me and Iron Eagle tonight. Does anybody have an Iron Eagle impression? I'll listen when I hang up.
Let me see. Todd, do you have an Iron Eagle?
I don't think so.
No? Yeah. Yeah, we
got to get an Iron Eagle impression. He's amazing.
Well, we'll work on it. Thank you, Ross. That's Ross Tucker. Rossington Tucker is football podcast, and he'll be on the call tonight. Westwood One, the Commanders and the Eagles. Iron Eagles.
Okay.
See what I did with that?